So the next session is with Andy Leggett, Area Manager at Bauder, Nigel Blacklock, Technical Director at Bauder, and Tom Rafferty, Product Director of Solar PV Environmental Lead at Bauder. And really what we're trying to focus on today is the importance of specification in that sustainability journey. So I will invite these chaps up onto the stage, and thank you very much.
No? Yes. Hi everyone, I'm really pleased to be here with you today. So our topic we were asked to talk to you about today was getting the specification right. I would expand that to getting the specification right in a very much changing environment, world, industry, and to try and give you a manufacturer's perspective of all the topics that we've been talking about today. So you've got three for the price of one. I'm going to talk about where we're at from an environmental perspective. Andy's going to then take over and make my complex picture look simple, hopefully. And then Nigel's going to look at compliance. So from an For those of you that don't know Bauder, we are a flat roofing manufacturer. Most of you, if you do know us, may well know us for our green roofs. That's part of what we do largely. It's waterproofing, insulation, anything flat roof. Where we're at the moment, well, I don't need to explain anything about why we need to look at sort of sustainable or environmental flat roofs. I think that's all been covered in the last hour. The net zero and climate change agenda really has impacted what we do, though. So for the next sort of 5-10 minutes, I just wanted to talk about where we're at. So at the moment, most of the conversations that come my way are about carbon. So it's really, really important. We've all heard why. But I would make a really good argument that there's a lot more that we need to talk about here. The environmental agenda is really complex at the moment. And it is really important to look at the carbon impact of our products and how they save operational carbon. But also we've got the circular economy, we've got waste, water, biodiversity. All these things need to be considered. And it becomes a complex picture. If we try and change the embodied carbon of a product, what happens? Are there unintended consequences elsewhere? I'm going to come back to the sort of systems, not products, a bit later. But what I wanted to do is just give you an idea of where we're at on that journey from an environmental perspective. So the first thing is data. We've heard in the last presentation quite a bit data talked about. And if you look at where we're at, one of the key things I keep getting asked at the moment is, give us your carbon reduction plan. Well, that's great. So we've done a carbon reduction plan. The pie chart on your left there is from, so these are both from our 2019 sort of benchmarking. And the one on the left is our scope 1 and 2 emissions from our operational control from the UK. Most of it's made up by our company vehicles, fairly easy to solve. It's a fairly straightforward picture, really. But then when you start to include our scope 3, which is all of the products that we manufacture, everything we make is in Germany, actually 96% of our carbon emissions as a manufacturer are the products, are embedded in the products that we make. So yes, it's important to look at the operational side of what we're doing, absolutely, but really we need to look at that, the product side. So that's where we started. And again, it comes back to data. So you just heard EPDs, Environmental Product Declarations, talked about. And one of the key things that we did very early on was say, right, we need EPDs for all of our core products, which we've done. But they're not perfect. So even within the Bauder product range, we have some products that have EPDs per square metre, some EPDs that are per kilo. It's quite hard to compare these things. We're working on it all the time, but they are a really important place to start. So until you've got that EPD picture, it's really hard to know where you should be focusing your time. So EPD's really important starting place. Once we know what the impact of different products are, we can then decide which products to work on. So for Bauder, if you look at the makeup of a flat roof, you might have about 75% of the embodied carbon will be the insulation, 25% will be the waterproofing membranes. So our starting point was to look at the insulation. And I should say, one of the things that was talked about earlier was cost and this sort of moving landscape. One of the biggest problems for us is it is a really fast changing market, and we just don't have the resource to do everything at once. You've got to decide where to put your time. So for Bauder, we looked at that. Well, insulation had the biggest impact, so we decided to look at our insulations first. And you heard it here first. As sad as it is, I'm very excited about this new product we're about to launch. This is Bauder Eco. It may not look very exciting, but from my perspective it is. And it's basically a PIR insulation board that has a very low embodied carbon. It's 60% biomass, so it's and 68% recycled content. This is a really, really good step in the right direction for us because it's low carbon. It's largely recycled product, but it has all the benefits of a standard PIR. So it's durable, it's efficient, it's lightweight, it's easy to install. And it moves us, it's moving the dial in the right direction. So I've just been through this, but largely if you compare it to our standard PIR board, it's about 25% of the embodied carbon. And I think the key thing I would point out from this perspective is it's taken us a long time to get this to market. So it's not a case of just coming up with a product and delivering it. We've got to ensure it's fire tested, that it meets all the right wind load calculations. All of these different things take time. And I would love, as a sustainability lead, I'd love to come up with the ideas and then we just start delivering them. We don't have a lot of time if we want to achieve what we want to achieve from an environmental perspective. But we need to make sure these things do work. So this was sort of our starting point. But it's not just about the individual products. So we've launched this product. We're looking at the waterproofing membranes, but it's how do they tie together? So that's from a supply point of view, from a manufacturer point of view. But then what do our products do? What do they deliver? When I started in roofing 20-odd years ago, a flat roof just kept the building watertight. That was its function. Now, a flat roof will do loads for you. So we are looking at keeping the water tight, but keeping the building well insulated. We will probably have a SUDS aspect from water management. We will have a biodiversity aspect. We will have solar PV on that roof. All of these things are tying together. They're doing lots for you. There's also climate adaptation and resilience from that roof. Does that change what we're delivering? So it is a much, much more complex picture here now than what we were delivering before. So we've now got a roof that hopefully has a nice biomass-based low-carbon insulation in it and waterproofing. These things are interchangeable depending on what your requirements are, what your deck is, whether you need a flame-free solution, all these kind of things. You then combine that with a blue roof for SUDS, so I know you can't really see what that is, but that's a water attenuation layer. You've then probably got a green roof for biodiversity, solar PV systems integrated, complex solutions. They all interact together with other parts of the building. So how does that affect your upstand heights? How does it affect your design for your structure? Much heavier, maybe. But it's a much more complex picture than it was just 5-10 years ago, where we were just looking at keeping that roof watertight. So hopefully that gives you a brief overview of where we're at and from an environmental perspective, what we're trying to do as a manufacturer, and then it's a bit more in-depth than it used to be from a specification perspective. And that is perfect timing for me to hand over to Andy to tell you how to deliver it.
Thanks, Tom. Good afternoon, everybody. My part of the presentation is really about how the team at NBS have helped Bauder over the last few years develop our NBS specifications on Chorus. We've come a long way over the last few years, and as Tom's mentioned, specifications are quite complicated now. It isn't just about components individually, it's about a system. We have to think about the insulation types. Is the insulation non-combustible? Sustainability, green roofs, blue roofs, PV, fire testing, all these things that need to be brought together into a specification to make it work. And that's why a lot of specifiers do come to Bauder, because they know that and trust we can give them a specification that's detailed, it works, and we can issue it in a format they can use. Now, that changed a few years ago when clients started approaching us for specifications in Chorus. Now, we all knew what NBS was, we knew what Chorus was, but we couldn't issue them the specifications in the format they needed. We would send that as a Word document, which meant they would have to copy and paste all the information, which is a time-consuming exercise. So, obviously, we wanted to be able to work with Chorus a bit more. So we approached the guys at NBS, and they helped us develop things to move forward. And before that, I actually sat down with some clients to learn more about the Chorus platform. I'd never seen it, I didn't have a license to access it. And Bauder has always had some information on Chorus. Our main systems were there, so as a specifier, you could find Bauder, you could put the information into the specification, as you're probably fully aware. And as you know, that populates the specification. And there's a series of drop-down boxes, and we could build a really basic specification just with product references, but that was pretty much it. And if you've ever seen a Bauder specification, you know how detailed they are. It incorporates industry standards, systems, and that's not what we were providing at this stage. So this is where we went and spoke to the guys at NBS, and they've been brilliant. I've bugged them constantly for 3 years with questions. How can we do this? How can we make our specifications better? And they helped us develop and add more detail to the specification. So the next couple of videos of us putting that detail in. So as I mentioned, we had product references before. A product reference doesn't really tell you too much. We need that product data. So we've spent the last 2-3 years starting to put more and more products onto NBS Source so we can add that information into the specification. And obviously substrate paragraphs as well. We don't just want to put the word concrete in, we want to put more detail. And here, what we're doing, rather than just having a reference to a primer, we're searching source for the right clause, and we're starting to put links in, which will then allow us to put data into the specification. So the specification's starting to take shape. But obviously we have to do that for every element of the build-up, and as we're talking about systems. So that can be quite time-consuming, and which is why we want to be able to do that for the specifiers. So now we're starting to get this specification that's starting to take shape. We're starting to get the product links in there. We've got system performance, which refers to fire performance, U values. You can see we've got the links here. Now we want to start adding the product data, and this is where we're putting the information from source into the specification, which then specifiers clients can access to see what those particular products are about. So you can see the specification is starting to take shape. And when we look at insulation, it contains information such as thickness, thermal conductivity, fire performance, etc. So the specification's becoming more detailed, it's providing you guys as specifiers more information. So we end up with the specification that you hopefully expect from us, that we want to be able to provide you, which is a specification that is fully detailed. Has the system performance I mentioned before, has the detailed deck paragraph, which refers to industry standards and regulations that we need to consider. We have all the product links, but this time, as you can see, we've actually changed them to Bauder-specific product references, so it's easier to maneuver around the specification. And the biggest part is the execution clauses. We need to know how our specification is being installed, as do you, as to contractors. And you can see the amount of detail that goes into these execution clauses as well. So we've put a lot more detail into the specification. But obviously, one of the benefits with Chorus and Source is it allows you to move between the platforms, which then allows you to find more information. So you can see we have our EPD certificates, third-party certification by BBA. This information is readily available. And this particular project is a green roof with biosolar, so taking into account everything that Tom's been talking about. And again, we have all the information there. So we can see biosolar, we can see the BIM models available. Just total flexibility from a specifier's point of view to gather this information. So you can see the amount of level of detail in the specification. And again, if we click on a product, it takes you to source. This is the attenuation cell that Tom was referring to earlier for our blue roofs. Not a particularly great picture, but it's about the information this page contains. And it contains the environmental information, the recycled content, the embodied carbon. So all this information that's readily available now from a detailed specification. So we now have a specification that we've discussed with you, we've got the detail that you've asked for, we need to get it across to your platform. And when I first started writing specifications for clients, there was always a bit of fight back about being invited into your platform. But obviously if we write a specification, we need to be able to do that to get it across to you. So again, NBS showed us a way to do it safely, and it's quite straightforward. You invite us into your main project, but you set up a subfolder. So you can see the main architectural specification, but you can also see a second folder called roofing specification. It can be called manufacturer's specification, whatever you want. And the idea is you're purely inviting that manufacturer into that folder, so they don't have access to your main specification. We don't want to delete anything we shouldn't be deleting. So you invite the person in, put the email address in. You can see that's set to contributor, which means at that point the person has access to everything. But change that to limited, which then excludes them. And then change the roofing specification to contributor. So when you press send, all that person gets an invite for is the subfolder for the roofing specification. No access to your main spec. So your project is safe. And this is the specification that I was running through earlier, the blue roof specification with biosolar. You can see all the references, and this is how quick and easy it is to transfer the specification once it's complete. So we tick the little blue box at the top, we press Ctrl+C to copy. You can see the clauses have been copied. We then go to the initials at the top, change organisation, you find the company that's invited you in. So now I'm in that client's platform, and you can see I have access to a folder, but I can only access the specification that they've invited me into. Ctrl+V pastes, and the specification's transferred. So within minutes, we've transferred a fully detailed specification specific to your project onto your platform. And we leave the platform, and we're there, done. So the specification's there. So hopefully those few slides have shown you how NBS have helped us go from having a few systems on NBS Chorus to having fully detailed specifications. We now have a library. Our goal was always to build a library of master specifications. So within minutes of speaking to a client, a few tweaks to the spec, we can transfer it across. That's how quickly you can obtain that detailed specification. So that's my part done. And with that, I will hand across to Nigel.
Thank you, Andy. So I'm going to cover in my part of the presentation the third strand of the topic for the conference, which is building safety. And Tom said earlier on that he would like to be able to more quickly get on with bringing products to market. I'm going to talk about why it is perhaps we can't always do that. We need to verify. So I'm going to make I think Dame Hackett didn't in a presentation mention specifically CCPI. She did talk about product stewardship, and she did acknowledge that's what she meant. And in the discussion, she did talk about it. She also said that we needed champions out there. Champion for CCPI, and I'll hopefully quickly explain why. My namesake, Nigel, explained a little bit more about what process we have to go through to get CCPI recognition, and I would just like to take you a little bit further into that. So when it was acknowledged that the disaster that we had with Grenfell, we started to look inwardly and the Construction Products Association started to pull together a team that looked at what product manufacturers could do to put their house in order. And in the end, CCPI is one of the major parts of that. And basically what they looked at was these key points, which really they called the acid test. And, well, who wouldn't want to have information in a clear, accurate, up-to-date, accessible, and unambiguous style? Yet when we all as product manufacturers go and look at our information, it isn't always in that way. And there's an element of the marketing department's all got a bit of a pummeling in terms of this. And one of the key things was hyperbole, which is something that still now, as we go through our information, we sift through and find different levels of hyperbole. We've taken out the obvious, the biggest, the longest, the greatest, but there's still some claims there that maybe still need to be toned. So I think probably if you look at, say, the BBC over the last months, you may all notice now they all actually show what their sources are for their data. They didn't used to do that. Well, it's what we're being asked to do, quite rightly. And also, we should be fact checkers, making sure what we say is right and correct. The big buzzword in the industry is competence, and that's something that is still perhaps the most difficult thing for product manufacturers to deal with in the 11 rules that we're trying to follow. And a factor really to remind everybody is it is voluntary, although of course the velvet glove is always there, that if we don't all adopt it, hence my promotion of this, is then government will have no choice but to mandate more. So we need to get behind it. So there's a number of you, perhaps half of you as product manufacturers. Why should you get involved? Well, we've been involved in this for about 2 years now. So as Dame Hackett says, get on with it. So if you think there's something in the way, get on with it. If it is that you're specifiers, then one of the issues at the minute is there are not very many products that have gone through the verification process. And one of the few companies that has done that is Bauder. This is what a verification symbol will look like for a system. It's blue if it's for a product. And a very, very important point to make here is the fact that you're not looking, and I'm not claiming, that Bauder has been verified by CCPI. It is this product set. Now, the very first product set we did is this one of our bitumen range. Having got that now approved, we are now bombarding CCPI with all of our other sets for all our other waterproofing, and then we'll move on to green roofs and blue roof systems. So you shouldn't be looking or asking for the manufacturer's verification, you should be asking for the product. So it's a little bit of background. Now, what I'd like to do is put out a thank you to a few other parts of our industry. And one of them, who sometimes gets quite a lot of criticism, is the BBA. A lot of people have claimed that, well, why do I need CCPI if I've got BBA? Well, as Nigel explained this morning, one of the key components is they do look intensively into our business and look at the culture of our business. Not something that BBA does, but what BBA does very well is verifies independently what our claims are. So, not surprisingly, when we came to our evidence for our product sets, then there's a heck of a lot of it refers to our testing, which is verified by BBA. So the BBA certificate is very important for the data that's in there. And you all know that there's a very good place to find the BBA certificates. That's in NBS Source. And another thing that you'll find in there is recently added is you can also now get the EPD certificates there. So it was mentioned earlier by Gary, he would love to be able to see where products are with the EPDs. Well, if you go here, you'll see which ones do have that. Now, another thing that the team at NBS were very savvy on and in good timing for was to help us on the journey for CCPI. One of the key things is the fact that you want to know that the information that you're reading about is up to date. And so there is a neat and easy way to do that. We saw it back here, up top line there, you can see the green dot. That means this information at that moment in time is up to date. And just to help you along with that is the fact you can see that if it's overdue or if it's just in perhaps the process of change. And you can see here in the color coding how long that might be. So we as manufacturers look to change our information. If there's a change within about 6 weeks, that's seen as reasonable to change it. But we're always being asked to look at our data to make sure it's up to date. So it's something with this prompt is every 6 months for us to look at that. So NBS working very well to help us to achieve our status for CCPI. And really just to finish is one of the parts here is you've heard in terms of manufacturers demonstrating their competence to give information. There is another logo, it's all about logos. Here in the red box here, you can see that we are a specification writing partner. So what Andrew was demonstrating was through his expertise, he is the champion in our business for doing that, is the fact that we've been on training courses, etc., to demonstrate that. And in doing so, we get the logo. So again, something else to be looking for. But the beauty of this is all in one depository. So you can now find all of our specification information, you can find all our product information, you can find our BBA certification, you can find our EPDs, all in one place. Thank you.